Like
His camera is
in the laptop and it's like my laptop is shut and facing the wrong direction because it's on a dock.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Oh, here we are.
It's Medical Weekends, and
Oh, hey, by the
Gabba
way,
Guy.
we're going live.
We're going live, and Gabba Guy is enthralling you and everyone listening with his camera issues. Hi, how's it going, everybody?
I don't have a mounted camera, or if I do, it's like not set up right now.
In case you were caring, which you probably not, but I was asking Gabba Guy why isn't he on camera, and he said because something with his laptop, and yeah, I know, it's amazing but true. So hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Radical Weekends on your fine Sunday afternoon, and I say Sunday afternoon because it is 12 o'clock here on the West Coast, and if it is not a sunny Sunday afternoon where you're at, well, you're just living in the wrong place. Because everyone knows the West Coast is the best coast. What?
That's placist.
What's that?
That's placist.
That's right. I'm a geo supremacist.
Oh.
So because I didn't say it last week, I'm gonna double fuck you, Arcane Logos, this week.
I think you didn't say it? I think you said it.
Oh, well, he deserves it anyway. He fucked up somewhere. I know it. So anyway, welcome everybody. We are here on our Sunday afternoon. Like I said, we're going to talk about a lot of things that's been going on in the country lately. A lot of violence, a lot of bullshit. There's a myriad of things. Charlottesville, Antifa, crying white supremacist monuments, Trump. But I do have to touch on one thing before I start. And this is probably the most important thing that's happened recently. And that is the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight.
I didn't get to watch.
Do you know the outcome?
Yeah.
Okay. I just like to say one thing, and I'll just drop it because it really has nothing to do with anything. But I don't watch sports, so I'm just going to open with that right now, with the exception of the UFC, which I was a pretty big fan of it a few years ago, and I sort of died out. But if I watch a sport, it is the UFC. So my dad watches a lot of sports, and my dad's a real man. Me, not so much. So he watches all sorts of sports. But anyway, the odds were against McGregor the whole way through, and I was kind of biased a little bit. I'm not a big McGregor fan per se, right? I never actually voted for him in a fight before, so I was kind of hoping to see he would win, of course, to see how he would do, against Floyd Mayweather. But I know the odds were against him. Now, here's the thing: all the ghetto people where I live are Mayweather fans, most of them, and I was told that McGregor was going to get destroyed because Mayweather is this phenomenal defensive fighter. You can't touch him. He knows how to move and this and that, blah blah blah. And he knows how to move. That's for sure. But what he did was, whenever he got in trouble, he would turn his back to McGregor and duck his head, like turn his back, because he knows you can't hit him in the back. So whenever you got in like the clinch or whatever, and you were like throwing shots, he would turn his back, and it happened so many times. I just lost count. It looks like a prom picture. That's actually a meme with McGregor, with his hands around Mayweather's waist, and it's like prom 2017, because there was so much of that, and he knows he couldn't. So, and it was kind of ridiculous in that sense, because Mayweather just waited him out until like the 6th, 7th round, and then waited till he was a little gassed, and then made his move, which is a fine strategy if he was boxing all the way through, not backing up. And he's basically twerking into him for the first half of the fight, which
twerking into him.
Well, because you know how boxers get kind of up close, right? And whenever McGregor started doing some damage, he would just like turn his back, you know what I mean? Because he can't hit him in the back or the back of the head.
Wasn't this UFC?
No, it was a boxing match.
Oh, it was just boxing. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the whole thing was that McGregor was going to jump into Mayweather's world, kind of, and
Shows how much I know about it. Yeah.
Mayweather had been retired for 2 years.
Okay.
But he's 49-0. He's not a knockout artist. He has incredible endurance and he's really smart. And so he likes to go the distance and score on points. Kind of, you know how when you see karate tournaments and they basically tap each other on the head and they get, that's basically what Mayweather does. Except he has incredible endurance. So what happens is fighters tend to tire themselves out. So if they gas, then he'll move in for the kill, but he doesn't have a lot of punching power necessarily. Yeah. McGregor has a lot of punching power, but he's never gone 10 rounds. That's not, UFC has 3 5-minute rounds and then 5 for a championship, right? But they're also suplexing each other and armbarring each other. You know what I mean? It's like it's a different. Your movements are different. Your head, your dodging is different. Everything is different. But I mean, I even post this on Facebook. They say Mayweather is one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, and I put Mayweather appears to be the best. When I'm in trouble, I'm going to turn my back so my opponent can't hit me, fighter in the world, because that's basically what it was. But anyway, I had to get that off my chest because that was really kind of irritating. But let's get on to some important shit because we're both nerds and we don't watch sports anyway.
Pickleball.
I said sports. Zinger. Oh, come on. That's funny, man. That's funny.
That's not funny.
All right. Let's talk about some real shit.
Next time I go out to California, you are going to hit the court with me and we'll see if it's a sport or not.
You promised that, and then you ditched me last time you came out to the West Coast.
You were talking about coffee. I played pickleball.
We could have played pickleball after. I'm not saying it doesn't take. Okay, look, I have a skewed view of sports anyway. To me, there's sports, there's professional sports, right? And then there's activities that people turn into sports, like pickleball and frisbee. And where it takes an incredible amount of endurance and skill and all that stuff, but essentially it's like a recreational sport, right? That's a highly competitive recreational sport. Is not accurate, like frisbee golf.
I'm sorry. What are you asking? Is it a professional sport? Is that what you're asking?
No. I'm saying there's professional sports, right? Yeah. Like football, that we all kind of acknowledge, and then there's highly competitive recreational sports like frisbee golf and pickleball and that kind of thing. That, in other words, there's not going to be you're not going to get to see a professional pickleball player with NASCAR sponsors. You know what I mean? Like that. You know what I mean? It's a highly competitive. You can call it a sport or an activity or whatever, but it's not recognized as a sport. You don't go to Vegas and bet on pickleball. It's kind of,
Don't go to Vegas and bet on pickleball yet.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I mean. I had people telling me that frisbee golf is I guess that's a thing. I've never heard of frisbee golf up until this year.
Disc golf.
Well, okay. And then
Frisbee's a brand.
They got special frisbees, they carry in a little bag, a little thing.
Yeah, I do that too. I've got a bag full of discs. You got putters and drivers and mid-range discs.
They're fucking frisbees, yo. And then don't you? You throw them into a post that has metal netting or something, and it's
it's a basket, and it's above the basket is a ring that hangs chains down. So when you hit the chains, it falls into the basket, and that's your hole.
That's fun.
It used to be my number one thing. 2 years ago, if we were on here, I'd have been talking about disc golf.
It's like tetherball.
Pickleball now.
It's like tetherball when you go to school. It's
no.
It's it's like dodgeball kind of.
No.
Okay, I love an angry Gava guy. All right,
this is our final episode of Heretical Weekends.
Disc golf, sport or activity? Yeah. All right. So anyway. Let's rewind time a little bit to when did Charlottesville happen? The beginning of the month?
2 weekends ago.
Really? It was that short?
Well, maybe it was a little bit longer than that.
Maybe 3 weeks? Okay. Well, as I said in the pre-show, things are probably a little different in your neck of the woods of the country than where I'm at. But that to me was kind of like the catalyst in many ways for the just fucking shitstorm that followed in the last couple of weeks. So, how did people react in Arkansas regarding Charlottesville?
Well, it depends on where you're at and things. Like, I mean, I don't think that there was anybody. Certainly, I didn't run into anybody that was, cheering for the Nazis. You had
Openly.
Yeah, not openly anyhow. Right. So you had people who were like, this is terrible. A lot of the people that kind of I run with, people that I work with, were appalled by the president's
we're going to get into that.
response and things. They were very disturbed by just the boldness of the Nazis, feeling free to run through the streets or march through the streets, chanting their slogans and things. And also just if you saw that HBO Vice,
yeah, I have that. We're going to get into that too.
Yeah. So that's, that all of that, most of the people that I know and associate with on a regular basis were, disturbed and kind of just shaking their heads in disbelief at the way all of that happened. I saw people who were kind of defending the president's response, and maybe a little bit, just regurgitating the Fox News talking points.
It's kind of
in that it wasn't that much. There wasn't that much of that kind of thing going on.
You know what I noticed a lot of that here in the news, and maybe this is just how it's portrayed, but whenever you hear, you'll hear these stories in the news about, someone didn't want to, in the service industry, didn't want to do something because of whatever reason, right? They're, the customers were gay or something, and they didn't, or, we didn't want to, and then they say, that's why we have Trump. I've heard, do you hear, I mean, not that you hear that, but I've seen that in the news, more and more often. We come out and we come out and, talk about, shooting minorities because we have Trump, and just weird shit like that. You know what I mean? I don't know, that it makes me scared to hear that, because even if whether Trump is for that or not is a different story, but the fact that they think that they have the okay, the okay kind of or at least a tacit approval from the president makes it still not okay, guys. So well, at least with Charlottesville, it was a protest, or I'm sorry. Take us through Charlottesville again. You had white supremacists, right? Yeah, that were protesting with the taking down of a statue.
Yeah, so the city had decided that they were going to take down a statue of, I believe it was General Lee, Robert E. Lee, and rename the public park from Lee Park to Emancipation Park.
It just rolls right off the tongue. But
I understand. Anyways, yeah. So, the Nazis were like, "This is bad. We don't like it. We're gonna protest. The removal of the monument and the renaming of the park." Yeah. So they showed up, and it was Unite the Right, I guess, was the name of the rally.
And of course, you had the anti-protesters show up. And of course, everything escalated, and it involved some people injured and one death, right? Yeah. When that maniac drove his car through a crowd.
Yeah.
I do got to say, when I first saw the picture, there's been a couple pictures, but there's one kind of famous one where the guy's holding the tiki torches. and they're like yelling, and it looked like something straight out of a movie. You know what I mean? Like American History X or something. You know what I mean? Or like one of those movies that takes place in the South where it's like a biracial couple and people don't approve, and you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Right.
And it was kind of surreal. I was just like, I don't get it. You know, there's people at my work in my industry. My industry, for better or for worse, is construction, right? I'm not on the building side. I'm on like the design side, but it's a very heavy Republican field.
Blue collar.
Yeah, and but when you get to my side, it's more corporate. So you know what I mean. Like sure. If you break down the way construction works, it's a big chain between the architect and the customer, all the way to the manufacturer where they buy stuff from, right? In the middle is where all the construction happens. But there's all this corporate shit on both, you know, from the architect and the owners to the, you know, us. But even then, the people that support Trump, I mean, aren't necessarily white supremacists, obviously, but they have this weird slogan that whenever something goes haywire, or whenever Trump says something dumb, or whenever something crazy happens, they always go, what I hear a lot is they go, oh, America first. And I hear that. I've heard that several times just in my current job, actually. And it's such an inane sort of thing it's a credo, I guess, because it's kind of like when Trump said, well, we're going to get rid of Obamacare and replace it with something wonderful. Well, great. That's fucking awesome. You know, it's like,
what is it?
Like, yeah. It's like one of those things where you go America first and you go, what? Like, okay. You know, and so when you know, if you ever get into it with somebody and you go, well, that's kind of a dumb, like, what does that even mean? You know, like, you know, and they go, oh, well, you're not a patriot then, because if you question the slogan America first, that must mean you don't want America first. But to me, it would seem pretty obvious that you can't have an America. You can't be an island nation separate from every other nation. You can't, you know what I mean? It's like, you can't burn all these bridges. You know, that's why we have the United Nations, and you know what I mean? Like, so there is a ripple effect, you know what I mean, when this stuff happens, you know what I mean? Like all the crazy people are, you know, out there with tiki torches and pepper spraying people, and it causes a ripple effect. And so even people at my work that are I would consider, you know, friends, work friends, you know, are like, last Christmas I wore a Trump shirt to the Christmas party, and you're just like, you were cool, not just leave me alone, you know. I don't know. I guess in your job, you know, your job is pretty diverse.
Yeah, well, and we've talked about kind of the weird irony, the fact that, you know, the culture you live in more broadly is very liberal, but the place that you work, the people there tend to be more conservative. Right. Whereas, you know, it's the opposite where I'm at. You know, broadly, the culture here in Arkansas is very conservative and religious, but the people that I work with, some of them maybe you know, religious to different degrees, but I think in general they lean more liberal for the most part.
Yeah, you know, as a quick tangent, I've actually had experienced some discrimination lately, to believe it or not, and it's not racial.
Based on your atheism?
Yes.
And really?
I didn't even realize it's going to be a little tangent here for a second, but I didn't even realize it until it took me a while, because I couldn't conceive of the idea, right?
Yeah.
Where I live,
what just happened, right?
Yeah, like my Facebook is full of people that none of them are like friends that I hang out with. They're just like, you know, people you meet that you're really cool with and stuff. And the area where I live is sort of this downtown type of area, and there's a lot of like locals. And a lot of the locals, at one point when I first moved in here a couple of years ago, you can walk out on any night, like an art walk or a farmer's market, and see 1, 2, 5, 7, 10 people. And then you become like this group. Like you can it's like It's like friends, like whenever you leave your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. And times change and all that, but the more sort of skeptic or atheist, if I post something on Facebook, is you're on my Facebook. I don't even post that much stuff, but I've just realized people that used to walk up, like run up and give me a big hug, girls, by the way, not guys, but or and a lot of these people, ironically, are the people. It's California, so it's like, thank you, universe, for helping me find this job. Like the universe is da da da. Like they're all spiritual and like that kind of thing. Not necessarily religious, but some are. And I've been snubbed. Like people that used to like really like enjoy my company, like we used to hang out, this and that, have walked right. They would hug the person next to me, walk by me like I don't even exist, like they don't know me, and like say hi to the next person and keep on going. And I'm just like standing there like, I guess I don't get a hug or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it didn't dawn on me until I started increasing the atheist stuff that this was sort of happening. And I didn't get invited to a friend's wedding that I've known since she was like I was 22. I met her when she was like 17. Yeah. As friends, not like that, but I'm 40 now. So I've known her for a very long time. And I went to her first wedding, and she didn't invite me to this one because she had found Jesus, and her husband is a big church guy. And now she just posts like fucking devotionals and shit like on her Facebook every day. Yeah. So I don't even get so much as like a hi or anymore or anything like that. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of weird, but I just kind of sat back and I went, huh, man, it's new. I mean, I'm used to the race stuff. The race stuff is fine. I get light racism all the time at work. Right. And I got to a point where people like my white friends on Facebook were getting mad at me for posting dumb things that white people say. And it's not so much that I have anything against white people, right? It's just that the things that you hear. Okay, I'll give you an example. I'm half Asian, right? And I had a coworker who's very nice, very sweet. And she's like, my daughter was on YouTube and she was watching this cartoon. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't understand what they were saying because they weren't speaking English. And, and I'm like, oh, like, because I could probably tell what kind of Asian it is. Right. And she's like, I'm like, oh, well, what's it called? And she's like, I don't know. It's like one of those, it's like one of those Asians. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, man, it's just like one of those Asians. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's a very dismissive, like we're all a homogenized group of slanty-eyed individuals that just are in this group, and that stuff you don't really, hear. You may hear someone say, "Oh, it's one of those Spanish speakers" or that kind of thing, but you really don't, Yeah, and so,
but is that prejudice or is it just ignorance?
It's not. I don't think it's a prejudice because they're not actually like prejudging me per se. I think it is. What's the word I'm looking for? I think it's a little racially insensitive.
Yeah,
I guess would be better because I know this lady. She has candy at her desk. I take it every day. I take some every day at work. Right. She's a nice lady. If you had a kid, you would trust her with your kid. You know what I mean? Like she's just like she's a great person, but. It's what I call, I wouldn't say she's racist, but it's like racism light. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Here's an ignorant statement. So one of my friends at work, we were talking about something and, we were talking about something with Chinese movies or something along those lines. Right. And then she goes, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah. Do you know karate or something? And I'm like, that's Japanese. And then she shrugs and goes, well, whatever. Like, Taekwondo? No, that's Korean. She's like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, but why are you naming shit? You sound like in my head, I'm like, why are you naming shit? You sound like a moron. You know what I mean? It's like, where I'm from, it's very common to homogenize all the Asians into one group.
Yeah.
And so I posted that on Facebook, right? And I had one angry white guy like get mad at me. And he's like, oh, well, I can't say anything to you because I guess I'm just white. No. I'm like, no, dude, but like you don't. you don't hear that from non-Caucasians, right?
Yeah.
Like what are you is the best. I love that. And I tell you, that's the one I hear a lot. They You get stared at for about 4 seconds, and they go and they tilt their head slightly, and they go, yeah. So like, like what are you? And I'm like, fucking human. No, 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 no. I meant like where were you born? I'm here. I'm American. Are you sure? And then it's like you have to go through. I go through this like every time. No, no, no. What's your nationality, dude? I was fucking born in New Jersey, dude. Like I'm American as American can be. Oh, but like and I have to go. I make them go through the rounds every time until they get to the fucking right word.
Yeah.
But I love that. Like,
so what do you like? Is if somebody asks what is your ethnic heritage, is that
that's fine? Yeah, what's your ethnicity? What's your ethnic background?
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Sure.
It's like they know the difference between what nationality. Race isn't even like unless you're an anthropologist, like race is almost a useless term now, right? Because most people from a sociological standpoint consider humans as one race. You know what I mean? It's only like anthropology that splits it up, and those are really antiquated terms anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had to get that off my chest. So I still like you though, Gabagay.
Well, good.
So anyway,
I'm working up the courage to forgive you about the pickleball comments, and
you're not hot about the pickleball comments.
We can probably still be friends.
If you ever come down, you can totally kick. I have zero cardio at the moment, right? So you can totally burn me in pickleball, and I would be fine. There would be no pride lost on my end. It would be like losing Jenga. You know what I mean? Like, kidding.
If you came off the Jenga table sweating bullets, then yeah.
I'm just fucking with you. All right. So, white supremacists, Antifa. You messaged me earlier in the week and said you had a very interesting interaction, or at least an interaction with both sides of this.
Yeah.
It seems, as crazy as the white supremacists are, Antifa tends to be as crazy or crazier. Help me out. Take me to both.
Well,
where, when, how?
I want to like walk it all the way back to like where I first found out about this like event, if you will. So I saw on Facebook a Facebook acquaintance of mine who is in some of the same like progressive and atheist groups, like local groups on Facebook. She posted something about there's a Nazi rally down in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and we're going down to counter protests. Please join in and come to take a stand against racism here in our state. So this was on our off week, so I said yeah, I can do that this afternoon and make it back in time for pickleball. So
wait. So your friend, what side was she on? I assume it's not the...
she was against the racists. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
So I jumped in my car. I drove. It's like 30-40 minute drive down from where I live to Hot Springs, Arkansas. Lovely place to visit, by the way, if you're ever in the state.
Oh yeah,
national park there. But so I didn't know exactly where it was. There's kind of a strip downtown that has all of these old bathhouses from kind of the turn of the last century. So from the 1800s to the 1900s, it was right in the late 1800s. So kind of shortly after the Civil War is when this was kind of a popular hotspot for tourists and things. But anyways, so there's this strip, and that's kind of where all the touristy stuff is. And I start walking, and I see there's a section in this parking lot near the visitor center that's barricaded off, and there are people there that I recognize are probably the left kind of group, but they're wearing like masks and such, and I was like, and they're running around with So I was like, I'm not sure what to make of this. Let me go see what the what's actually going down at the other place, because I found out very quickly that the other group was separated by like a couple of city blocks. So they were trying to keep things separate so that there wouldn't be direct conflict and interaction and things, and to hopefully reduce the likelihood of violent interaction and things between the two groups. So I walked past the barricades for the liberal group and walked down further, and near this kind of historic hotel there's a park with like a grassy plaza kind of deal, and the grassy park plaza was kind of sectioned off with barricades, and there were a bunch of people carrying flags of with the Confederate flag, and like a Christian flag, which
what the hell's that?
If you've never seen the Christian flag, it's like
no.
It's got it's all white except for a blue field in the upper left-hand corner, kind of like the U.S. flag. So it's got like a navy blue field, and then it's just got a red cross on the in that where our stars are. So it's just a single red cross there.
All right.
So, but anyways, so these people are walking around in there, and it's there's kind of a low cut hedge of bushes, and then the barricade where they were at, and then on the other side of the bushes was the sidewalk, and so you can interact and talk with people. So I walked up and I said, well, I'm interested to find out what you guys are about. Well, what are you actually here for? Because I didn't see any Nazi symbols or anything like that. And
right.
And their response was, well, we're here because we're all about history. We want to preserve history. We think that it's not being taught in the schools, and people are ignorant of history, and that's what we want to advocate for. And I said, well, like what's missing from the schools? And they're like, they don't teach about the Civil War, they said. And
what?
Yeah, the kids don't know about it. And I said, well, I learned about it. Now I'm not in school right now, obviously, but I learned about it when I was in school.
Right.
So what is if or what else are you talking about? What is not taught? And they said, well, they think that the Civil War was about slavery, and it's not. That's not what it was about. And I said, well, why do you think that it wasn't about slavery?
It wasn't what it was solely was about, but it played a very big part.
Yeah, well, and I mean, if slavery hadn't been an issue, I don't think the Civil War would have happened. Would have happened.
Right.
And they said, well, there were black people fighting for the South. And they said, if it was about slavery, the black people wouldn't have fought. Well, it's true that there were black soldiers, but for one thing, they weren't given guns. They in a lot of cases they were there to dig ditches and things, and so it was still slave labor, but maybe they got paid, or there was some incentives for them. And another incentive, if I'm a slave and I'm given an option, stay here, with chains on the farm working, or go traipsing through the woods with a regiment where maybe there's going to be a chance that I could escape. I'm going to choose to go with the regiment and put on a uniform rather than my raggy slave clothes and whatever.
I mean, yeah, they made it. They're making it sound like it wasn't as. What are they trying to say? Like it wasn't as bad for black people in the South during that time,
right?
Oh, I'm sure it was a fucking vacation. I'm sure they got all the same privileges. And
oh,
that was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Terrible. So I asked them. I said, well, what you're aware that the South. Each state kind of gave an article or ordinance of confederation that explained why they were seceding from the Union, right? What did the Articles of Confederation say was the reason? I mean, from my understanding, the reasons that the Southern states gave was because, you know, that they were seceding because of slavery, because they were afraid that there were, you know, more northern states being added as we expanded westward, and that they would be, you know, the balance of power would shift in favor of the North and the you know, non-slave states, and they weren't having it because they didn't want to lose that right. And and they were like, well, you know, they were kind of didn't know what to do with that one, and they were like, well, we're gonna go get Jim Bob or whoever the other guy was. He was their expert or whatever. So they ran, yeah. So, you know, just right off the bat, it was like, well, we're all about history, but this key point, you know, that is the motivation for the war that they say is not being taught. They didn't know the answer to that. So it's like, well, you're for teaching of history, but you don't want to, you know, bother to learn about any of it yourself.
Well, as a side note, it wasn't like after the slavery ended, whether you were in the North or the South, right? I mean, assume for a second you were an African American in the North.
Yeah.
It wasn't fucking Shangri-La. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you know, would it be better than under the Confederate South? Sure. But, yeah, you know, I mean, we still feel the ramifications of that shit today. It's not like they went over there and it was like a ticker tape parade for African Americans. So,
yeah. Well, go ahead. And there are, you know, there are degrees of liberty and degrees of oppression and degrees of you know, institutional kind of bias and racism and things like that. Sure, you know, but it was way worse in the South,
right,
than it was in the North, and you know, even a free black man from the North, like in the 12 Years a Slave story, which was, you know, it's a true story of this guy's experience. He was a free black man who traveled in the South during slavery and was captured by some slave guys that turned him into a slave. You know, he had a family, he was educated, and, you know, all this stuff. Well, he did not have the rights as a free man, as a black free man in the South, that he would have had in the North, and it took him 12 years to escape that, just because he was black. So
yeah, that was a really good movie, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, excellent movie. Yeah. And I mean, sometime I'd like to even read the book. I have not done that, but
I mean, it was no Django Unchained or anything, but no, kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyways, so, you know, they went back to get their expert guy, and I talked with him for a few minutes. I don't remember even exactly what the conversation was with him, but it didn't get very far. And like one of the things, and I don't know who exactly said this, one of the things was that they said that you know, the founders all had slaves, and they had slaves in the North. And I said, no, slavery was not allowed in the North. It was not legal in the North. And they said, yeah, George Washington. And I said, where do you think George Washington was from? And they were like, yeah, like he was from the Northeast. And I was like, no, he's from Virginia. So, and that was the South. So yeah, he had slaves.
No, but I mean, look at the logic there. It's kind of, kind of like it's that baffles me, where they go, well, George Washington had slaves, so what the fuck does that mean? Does that mean suddenly slavery is okay? I mean,
right?
Like,
they're doing their best to like whitewash the whole thing, and acting as if the flag. They were people that rebelled against our federal government, you know, for the purpose of preserving this institution. The slave institution, you know, institution of slavery.
It's kind of like when it's kind of like when you bring up when you argue with a theist and you bring up like all the shitty things that religion's done, and they go, oh yeah, but what about Stalin and Pol Pot? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, Jesus, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but the conversation didn't last very long with those guys.
It was
There were
relatively civil,
It was, yeah, it was,
as you
and
were
it
like,
wasn't confrontational. You know, before long though, the Jim Bob guy, whatever his name was, I don't even remember. But yeah, and he had like this Confederate soldier's hat on, which and like a
what kind of
scraggly
shirt was he wearing?
beard.
Was he wearing like a neon
He,
green shirt?
I don't know why. Do you see a like a news article or anything or?
Yeah. There's a kind of a thinner,
Yeah,
scraggly older
scraggly
male.
beard. Yeah,
Scraggly beard. He's wearing like a shirt that says the Highwayman with a cross in between the and the
could be. I
and,
don't remember.
he has an American flag like on a pole, like
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
13
Share your
stars.
screen. Pull it
Oh,
up. Yeah.
yeah, I forgot. Look at this fandangled technology.
Yeah, but anyhow, this guy asked me to leave. Yeah, that's him. Yep. Yeah.
He asked you to leave?
Yeah. Yeah. He was like, they're gonna, then they were, because it is a federal park, like hot springs. All of the bathhouses and things are kind of owned by the federal government, and there's it's a national park, so there's park rangers there and local hot springs police,
More action
and
than I've ever seen.
he's gesturing over to them, um, as if to say, that they're the reason that he's asking me to move. But he's like, yeah, they're going to ask you to move because you're blocking traffic or whatever. I was like, what are you talking about? I was one guy on this wide sidewalk. I think it's like wider than normal, like maybe 8 feet wide sidewalk. And there wasn't a huge amount of foot traffic going back and forth because a lot of the people were standing there listening and things. Well, so I didn't want to argue with him or fight with him, and he kind of walked away as well. So I was like, okay, I'm done, I guess. And I had another conversation with two kind of bystanders that weren't, necessarily liberal, but were, maybe somewhat sympathetic to at least preservation of the Confederate flag.
How did you not bring your fucking recorder? How did you not pull out your cell phone at least? You know what I mean?
I know. I should have. And if I go down again, I might try to do that. But anyways, so that conversation with those other two guys that weren't, there with those people was very civil and I think pretty productive too. Like the one guy, he had an opinion about, the Confederate monuments and things. And there is a monument in Hot Springs that is kind of a representation of a Confederate soldier, and it's a monument to the unknown soldier. So one of the things that those Confederate people were saying is, we some of them were veterans, and they were saying, that it was in honor of veterans and the unknown soldier, and the fact that it was a Confederate soldier was, only secondary because, they were people that were fighting for, civil rights or whatever. Well,
for them,
for one group of people.
What about all the unnamed slaves that were killed?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about that particular like monument and location where it's at is that it was the site of, I believe, 2 lynchings, like public lynchings that were just mob justice. There was kind of a wealthy family back in the, I don't know if I want to say that was the 50s, but I could be wrong about the time frame. But one of them was like this girl for this wealthy family. The daughter was found in the closet in her bedroom, with her head like bashed in, and the servant was blamed, and the people like ran out with like pitchforks and stuff, got him, dragged him out there, and hanged him in public with no trial. And so it was, a horrific and unjust thing. And and it was done at that spot. Why? Because those monuments were erected, in large part during either Jim Crow reconstruction of the South, to kind of in defiance of the anti-slave North, and or during civil rights and things. And so these have been symbols of kind of this begrudging defiance in the South that says, we don't like this. We think that we were right about slavery and about racial oppression, and you may be able to force us to change on the outside, with some things, with regard to some things, but we're still going to have the KKK and do what we can to minimize power and rights of Black people. And so those monuments are monuments, to individuals from the Civil War that were fighting, for those ideals, and they were erected by people whose motivations were, oppression and kind of, I don't know, scare tactics, or what's the word, but.
Well, it's funny. I'm reading articles as you're. It says, prominently displayed at the intersection of Central and Market in Hot Springs is a statue of a Confederate soldier waving right above it is a Confederate flag. Thursday, the Arkansas State Democratic Party called for monuments like this to come down. Quote, "Why they want to take it down, I have no idea," says Daniel Clarence Taylor, who lives in Hot Springs. Taylor is passionate about keeping the Confederate symbols where they are. I'm sure you are, Taylor. It's not a symbol of slavery, says Taylor. It's not. It's a symbol of a war that was fought against slavery, a belief that some Arkansans share.
Arkansans.
So then, if it's a symbol of a war against slavery, then why is it a Confederate soldier? Why? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like you would put for World War II, to the fight against World War II, we're going to put up a statue of a Nazi soldier.
Right.
What?
Yeah. It's a monument against Nazis.
What the fuck? How does that make any sense? He says, this guy, Daniel Clarence Taylor, says, a lot of emotions are getting out of control, and I don't think it's constructive. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not him. That's a feller by the name of Steve Westerfield. Westerfield lives in Hot Springs and is an amateur historian. He says this really isn't the time for a rally surrounding such a controversial and frequently misunderstood topic. He says, I think a lot of people don't know history, and so a lot of problems come about because people have misconceptions. Well, look, whether or not it was a statue that was its initial intent was to fight against slavery, statues and monuments and stuff like that are meaningful because we apply meaning to them, right?
Yeah.
When they don't mean those things, I mean, with the exception of it being like an old statue, what it currently stands for, unfortunately, to a lot of people is, not the best of living situations for African Americans in America, and all the people that died in a senseless kind of war. So, it seems like how many people were there for the Confederate side?
Yeah, so that's another interesting thing. So there were maybe 15 to 20 people there, and 20 is probably more than there were. It was probably less than 20 people there. And there was, interestingly, there was one black guy there that was in among them.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't get to talk to him. He showed up later, and I was already kind of finished talking with them at that point. But
I wonder what Billy Bob's reaction would be if I was asking him those questions.
I don't know. I don't imagine that he would change his answers for you, but
I just would wonder if his tone would change, or like I would even get to speak to Billy Bob to begin with. Like I get past the other two guys,
Yeah.
like So interestingly enough, you said you spoke to the left side, the
Yeah,
way left side, and they were actually being a little more dickish, I guess, or
yeah,
more difficult.
yeah.
How did you approach them? What happened?
Well, so I went back. Part of the reason that I went down to the Confederate place was just so I could really understand who they were, because I got this message on Facebook saying, it's a Nazi rally. Well, there were no Nazis there, and those people weren't emphasizing race or whatever. I think they were misinformed. I think that they're wrong. I think that they don't understand the history that they're complaining that other people don't know about. And so, all of those things are maybe true, but they weren't Nazis, and
Well,
racism wasn't the main thrust of what they were there for.
Correct. Can I ask you? Can I ask you an intuitive question?
Sure.
So, yes, they weren't there, and they weren't any Nazi symbolism or credos being spewed about, and
Right.
same thing to be said for there wasn't any like white supremacy stuff being bandied about. However, when these guys are at home in the cabin or wherever the fuck that they live, I would imagine some of them may be a little white supremacy, even though you know what I mean? Like I would imagine none of those guys would be okay if I dated their daughter.
I don't know. I mean, and I want to be as fair as I can, because
Sure.
there was nothing there that there were no views that were expressed along those lines.
Understood.
There were, it was majority white for sure, but it was no more white than I say that there were a couple of additional black people there, but I think the balance was probably pretty much the same. As far as the ratios of black to white, or just
Sure.
other ethnicities in the left group than there were at this camp. And so I really can't say. My intuition is, yeah, there's probably some racist, at least, tendencies and prejudice, to varying degrees among those people that were there as the Confederates.
Right. I would imagine that. Assume for a second that you were not a racist by their standards, right?
Yeah.
Like let's say you're a Confederate guy, and your kid, you don't mind your kid going to public school with other races. You just want to make sure that let's say just being in that group, it's very easy to be unfairly labeled, which I understand why you're not, like jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
However, judging by the company they keep, I mean, I'd be a little scared walking around the neighborhood at night. You know what I mean? Or during the day. But that would just be me, because it would make me a little sketch. That's all.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
But about the other side, because you said they were being a little more. They were being turds.
Yeah. So I walked back after feeling that I had a fairly decent grasp of who those people were. I walked back to the other the left side, the counter protest, to try and figure out what they were about. And because I had never run into I've been to a lot of marches and protests and demonstrations and things. I won't say a lot, but I've gone, several times over the years. And I've never seen, groups like this where they were wearing like all black and had all, masks on and carrying weird flags that I didn't recognize. And, what is this? So I went back there, and first of all, they're like, there was one girl, a lady that was kind of like taking the lead role, whether she was an appointed leader by anybody else or not, I don't know. But she's like, okay, everybody, we're going to go over here in the shade under this tree, and everybody make sure you drink water. And we've got an emergency meeting. Everybody gather. And so, people kind of, it was a fairly big area that that they had. It was quite a bit bigger than the area for the Confederate people, and I don't know if that was to accommodate the greater numbers, because I think there were maybe 30 when I was there, and apparently there were larger numbers there earlier on in the day. I don't know, but she gathers everybody under the tree, and she says, like, we're on high alert, and everybody keep your eyes peeled. We don't want any trouble. Don't engage with people, but we, blah, blah, blah. And,
and then you come by asking questions.
Yeah. So,
they probably thought you were on the Confederate side. If did you speak to the Confederate guys first?
Yeah, but I didn't come back with like a flag or anything.
No, but I mean, they probably just saw you there talking to them, right?
No, they couldn't see from there.
Oh, okay.
It's like 2 blocks away, and
okay,
you can't see anything that's going on from either side. What's happening on the other side?
Okay.
So, yeah, and they had seen me. I stopped by there first, but I was like, well, where's the other one? I want to go down and see what's going on over there. So they were like, yeah, it's down that way. So they had seen me pass through, and. So I was like, well, one of the things that she said was, if you have a mask, put your mask on. And I was like, why are people wearing masks? And not everybody had masks on. And there was one like older lady there who had, what's that progressive group in Indivisible?
What the fuck is that? What's
yeah,
that?
it's like kind of like Obama for America or whatever.
What's that? I've never heard of any of these groups.
Or Move On.
Nope.
Move On.
Nope.
Shut up! What?
I've never heard of any of these groups.
Oh my word! So anyhow, they're progressive groups that try to organize people, and they'll pass around petitions and tell people when certain bills are being voted on and things.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of stuff. Well, she was with Indivisible and had this kind of a makeshift. She took poster board and wrote Indivisible on one side of it and made a hole for her head. So, yeah. So it was just
like a party.
Yeah. But but the other people that there was a lot of like kind of funky colored dyed hair and punk rock kind of jewelry, and one guy had like safety pin earrings and and mohawk and whatever. And
can I just say that I know I came down pretty hard earlier, and I'm not a white supremacist, but these Antifa guys, or I don't want to say they're any Antifa guys, but these people on the far left, they fill me with such annoyance and anger. Like, these fuckers aren't making things any better, to be honest, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to counter protest and stuff, but they remind me of the guys that when their sport team wins, they start rioting and burning cars and shit. And it's like, it's like you're only inciting things and making things worse. And when you put masks on and you got your hoodies going, and
right,
it's a much more intimidating, thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, the purpose, I can see why the KKK guys would cover their face in hoods because they don't want to be outed, right?
Yeah.
Like those white supremacist guys were on Twitter. But when you're hiding your face, it only leads people to believe that you're up to no good.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there would be no other reason to hide your identity. If you're out there and you are counter protesting because you're, for this, this supposedly like this, anti, prejudice, what I mean, anti-white supremacy or whatever, right, and all this stuff. Why would you hide your face? I mean, those are the guys that are throwing bottles at people. You know what I mean? That's what I think of. And if you are looking to get arrested or at least eyeballed by the cops, that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah.
Being a lefty or a liberal myself, I guess, if I had to categorize myself somewhere. And maybe just I'm a little older, so now things are left way left, so left they've fell off the fucking planet. But that why they don't have though it's not that bad out here in my city, you know, there's a lot of, you know, hashtag occupy everything, hashtag, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And every once in a while on there's a busy street coming through where I live, they'll have, you know, these protests where these people are like, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, they're just like yelling shit. I'm trying to walk my dog and go through there. It's like, I don't disagree with you guys, but you're yelling in my ear. And I'm trying to cross the street. You know what I mean? Like, good job, guys. You stand out here and sweat, and I'm going to go home and watch you guys on the news. Like, you know what I mean? But it only, I mean, it only serves to like, it's an arms race to me, right? So, you know, you got, I'm not saying these guys at this protest were white supremacists, but, you know, before, right, in Charlottesville and stuff, you got guys with shields and fucking, you know, and so on the other end now we got guys with masks that are fucking, you know, and then now the other guys are going to have bats and shit. And, you know, there's one guy that was open fire, like shot into a crowd, like not at them, but like sort of angled downward. I saw that video this morning. There was a protest. They were getting each other's faces, and he whipped out his gun and just shot sort of at like a 30-degree angle down. That guy was later arrested, but, you know, obviously, but it's going to be it's only going to make things worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're trying to combat violence with violence, and it's not going to work.
No. Yeah. So, and they were, you know, they're just running around paranoid and acting like, I mean, it reminded me like little kids playing spies or something. I mean, that's the level of ridiculousness that this was. And, you know, they were talking about some, you know, Nazi person saying that at one point they had snipers, you know, posted up on this building that was way up on a hill and overlooked the parking lot where they were at. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, like what? You know, there's so much like hearsay of, you know, somebody said something and, you know, somebody told us this and that. And
it's like that game Telephone when you were in like when you were a little kid. You ever played the game Telephone? Yeah.
And, you know, and they're like posturing. So that, you know, the person says, well, you know, we told the Nazi lady that said that they had the snipers. Well, you know, we don't care. We're here. You know, you're not gonna intimidate us and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's just, it was so annoying.
They're basically riling each other up.
Yes. And they had been there like all day in the Arkansas heat, and it was a pretty hot day. They'd apparently had one person like pass out because she, you know, from heat exhaustion and maybe dehydration and whatever. And it was silliness. And so, you know, and I didn't mention this, but, you know, as I passed through the first time, there had been a guy that was wearing a, you know, Bernie for President hat. And he was there, and I've seen him at some other like demonstrations or like the Women's March or something like that. And I think, you know, maybe some of our, you know, progressive groups that I've gone to,
right.
But they were all like up in his face, and they're telling him, well, we took what you did as, you know, it was your posture and it was your blah, blah, blah. And we took that as being aggressive, and the police are standing close by, like, you know, whatever. And they finally asked the guy to leave and he was like, I'm on your side. I don't know why you're, you know, being so, you know, hostile towards me and whatever. And so he's like, I'm fine. I don't have to be here. I came to support. and so, you know, they ran this guy off.
They're turning on each other and shit.
Yeah.
They don't understand. Okay, here's what it's like. Sorry, I know you were on fire there.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was in high school, I think I'm a little older than you, right? And but we're
right about the same age.
Oh, okay. But and I don't know where you grew up, but back where I grew up, in Orange County, do you remember before there was emo, there was a thing called goth?
Yeah.
And the goth kids were like, they were like, you know, they had their bangs like up in their, you know, like, you know, like, fuck this. But you know, we're expressing our uniqueness and this and that. And then they created this subgroup where they all have the same mindset and all the same thought process, but they all claim to be unique, right? Because they have this perception that like the status quo or the norm looked like this, so we're all going to look like this. And the irony is that they all look the same. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? For the most part. And so it's kind of a similar thing, I guess, to me, where, it's like, you don't look like the guys. I'm here to support you guys. You know what I mean? But it's like they're creating their own little mob, and it's going to be, and now they're all, for wanting to be fighting for supposedly the rights of others and individuality, this and that. They're becoming everything they're opposing.
Yeah.
To me,
Yeah.
that's what it sounds like to me.
No, I would agree fully on that. And so after this little like gathering and whatever, and then she has them disperse and watch the perimeters and blah blah blah. Report any
perimeters.
Yeah, yeah. So I walked over to some of the people and I was like, well, and I asked them why are you wearing masks? So like, we don't want to be doxxed. We don't want to be doxxed. And I was like, well, what does it matter? And then some of the people would pipe in and be like, I don't care if I get doxxed. I don't care. And like,
I would have been like, how about you speak fucking English, dox?
So then I said, well, can anybody tell me like what, you guys are here as, I don't know if members is right, but you're here, kind of representing or as participants in Antifa, however you want to say it. You have some affiliation with Antifa apparently because you've got this flag and you have shirts or whatever it was. I forget how exactly they showed their affiliation with Antifa, however you want to say it. I don't know how you say it. I'm going to say Antifa because I like it. So right away, this one guy was like, I don't know who you are. Like, what does that have to do with it? He's like, you can look it up. You can Google it. Wikipedia is your friend. It's out there. And I was like, well, you're right here. He's like, yeah, I don't know who you are. I don't trust you. Yeah.
Well, maybe they thought you were like undercover, like, reporter or some shit. Because when you walk up to a group like that, or any group, and you go, yeah, so what's this all about? So why are you guys wearing masks? It sounds like you're like kind of an undercover, like, Vice reporter or some shit where you're trying to get, you could have opened with like, wow, it's hot outside today, huh? Yeah, how about them bears? Hey, why do you guys wear masks? Or whatever. Maybe just get into it a little bit more.
Yeah. So, and I hadn't looked into it. I had heard some, people complaining about Antifa and I don't know, I'd heard that, somebody had done violence or whatever, but, I hadn't paid close attention to it. I hadn't looked into it myself. And I was like, well, here are some people that can tell me what it's about. But no, they shut me down. And then they start like, hostility towards me. And I was like,
are you serious? Like how?
Yes. Like just maybe if you aren't sure you belong here, maybe you don't belong here. Maybe you belong at the other place or whatever. So I was like, well, I thought, I went down and talked with those people for, 20 minutes or more. And I had a civil conversation. Now I disagree with what they stand for. And, I came here because it was my understanding that there was a demonstration, kind of with racial undertones or that was overtly racist. And I wanted to say that, I'm somebody in this state who does not accept that and believes that, that doesn't have a place in our country or our state. And I said, so if I'm okay to be that and be here, then we're good. I said, but I'm also, if I'm, contained within the same space as you, and I'm here as this, counter protest, I kind of want to know what you guys are about. And so somebody came over and, they're arguing with me and asking me a bunch of questions. And, do I,
what were they asking you?
Well, they were saying or insisting that I say that I, as a white male, that I have privilege and blah, blah, blah. And why won't I say that? Why won't you say that? And then there was one black guy who came over and is like scolding me or saying something. I don't even know what was being said, but when I tried to ask him what he meant or whatever, I was accused of white-splaining.
White.
Like, I'm not explaining anything. I was asking, I'm trying to listen. I want to understand, what it is that you guys are about. And so I finally gave up because nothing that I said was getting anywhere. And I tried to explain. I said, I can, the one guy said that he didn't know who I was. I said, well, you can ask me questions. I'll tell you who I am. I gave them my name. I said, this is who I am. This is where I live. I said, I have nothing to hide. And I said, and I have been fighting for, progressive ideals since, whenever, for the past probably 20 years. And, to greater or lesser degrees. I said, look at my Facebook history and you'll see. Well, the guy was like, you could have made that up. I don't know that that's real. And it's like, so 8 years on Facebook is artificial. And this is, now I've come here to capitalize on my 8 years work of putting up a front on Facebook. Like that's,
yeah,
that really makes sense. Yeah.
You're really committed to the farce.
Yeah. So
fucking paranoid. I'm telling you, these motherfuckers are going to spin this so far out of control. It's like, playing soldiers, right? I would imagine like if there's like a 4-square area, and like you got the Confederate guys on one side, and maybe like someone went back to their like station wagon to get like bottled waters, and I would imagine like the Antifa guys going, dude. I think he's gonna get a gun. Go, 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 go. Let's watch, and like right. they run to the other side to watch the guy, and by the time he gets back, it's like people are like, someone got a gun, get the Molotov cocktails, and the next thing you know, there's like stuff being thrown, and what a fucking bunch of morons, dude. Like they don't see what they're doing from an outside perspective. That's part of the problem. When you get so self-righteous that you can't see what you've become, it's a problem, and they don't see it. They think they're fighting for a cause, and apparently that causes mutual self-destruction, but they don't see that.
Yeah. Well, and one of the girls that was there that was accusing me of like white-splaining and stuff, she had whipped out her phone and was videotaping or recording the conversation. It was like, oh, I can't wait. This is going to go up on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you're the ones that are going to look bad. I was like,
damn it. I wish you didn't get that, the girl's Facebook name.
I don't know. So I kind of sidelined after a few minutes, and I went over, I found a shady spot. I sat down and I talked to the lady that had the indivisible thing, because she was not, a part of that like frantic paranoid group, and wasn't wearing a mask. She was a normal human being that
except she had a sign around her head.
Well, she had a sign, but indivisible is a pretty they're progressive, but they're not like crazy, whacked out, stupid.
What did she say? Was she all right, or was she crazy?
Yeah, no, she was fine. She was fine. I sat down and I talked to her, and she was like,
did you explain what happened to?
Yeah, well, she saw.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, she had been there, and she saw, and whatever. I was like, I don't understand this. They're and the Bernie guy, she had seen him too, and she was like, yeah, they're kind of running people off, but they're very passionate about their stuff and whatever. And so she was, kind of trying to
damage control.
I don't know. Well, you just like didn't want to necessarily condemn them or whatever, but
it's kind of stupid though. You can tell when somebody, I wish people would just commit to a fucking opinion, because they, in her head, she's probably like, look, we're all supposedly on the same side. I don't necessarily agree with their approach, but but you have to go, no, it's like they're like totally. No, sorry. When I hear dumb things, I hear Valley Girl voice, but she probably wasn't. She was like, "Oh, they're just really passionate about like their cause," and it's like, no, they're being fucking dumb. Why can't you just go, you know, I know you're on our side, but you're making us look bad. You know what I mean? Like, just stop with your craziness. We need more support, and you're running people away.
Yeah.
You know, like even if somebody was a secret spy, like a reporter for like, you know, white supremacy, you know, Gazette or whatever, like what would be if you weren't being an asshole, what would there be to hide? You know, like if somebody came and was asking questions and you go, yeah, you know, we're counter protesting the XYZ and you know, what would the harm be in that if that was quoted on some white supremacy webpage? Like, doesn't make any sense to me that they're that hostile.
Well, it's just like the punching Nazi things. I mean, Matt Dillahunty, when he had talked about, you know, the issue of, you know, whether it's a good idea to punch Nazis or whatever, he said, you know, we don't know that was it Richard Spencer? Is he the one that got punched on the camera? This was back, you know.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
by a guy in a mask.
Yeah, and I think it was an Antifa guy or whatever. So, but you know, Matt Dillahunty said, well, you know, we don't know if this is the case, but it's at least potential. It's possible that he could have paid someone to do that, and it got him a whole bunch of attention because of it. You know, if he'd just had that interview, that wouldn't have gotten the attention that it did get because he got punched during the interview. So, if it was, you know, it's possible that was a, you know, publicity stunt, and if it's a possibly, you know, like a strategically good idea for him conceivably to pay someone to do that, is it a good idea to do it without being paid to do it? You know, and you know, does it help your cause doing that, or does it, you know, do more to help his cause? And Matt's, you know, view was, of course, that, you know, if it's something that he might conceivably pay someone for and be smart to do it, it's not smart to do it for him with, you know,
right.
If you're against his cause.
You know, now that I'm thinking of the video, it's really weird that, you know, he gets sucker punched by a guy in a black hood and a black mask. And at the same time, he quote unquote disappears in the crowd and no one chases after the guy. No one tries to grab the guy. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And I was, you know, when you think about it, you're like, you know, if that's like your leader dude and he probably has a couple of his guys with him and he gets sucker punched, you think one of the other guys would have like grabbed the dude or something. It's like the camera turns and he's like, it's probably the only guy in that crowd with a black hoodie and a mask. Even if he's facing away from you guys, he's wearing a black hoodie. I mean, it kind of stands out.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyways, so, you know, and among the other things that happened while I was there that afternoon, that, you know, I heard some people were complaining about the cops, you know, from the Antifa group, and like, yeah, they arrested 2 of our people for jaywalking when they ran across the street to try and block these KKK people from walking down the sidewalk.
Well, you can't block anybody from walking down a fucking sidewalk.
Right. I was like, why would you do that? Right. What is the point of that?
Because they can't be victims unless they get, you know what I mean? Like, both sides are looking to be victims. and then what's funny is I've seen, you know, stuff on both ends where they blame police. Like, this person did this and cops did nothing. And this person did, you know, that story I told you about with the guy that took his gun out and kind of shot, you know, in the direction of the crowd. The article was, you know, white supremacists open fires on black male and cops do nothing or something, you know, I mean, that kind of thing. And you're just like, and then you read the article and then the quote from the police or whatever was like, you know, we would have reacted to it, but, you know, at that, it was a large crowd. There were drums, loud music, and people yelling. You know what I mean? So they didn't even hear it, is what they were saying. Yeah. Obviously, if they heard a gunshot, they would have went over there. Now, whether that's damage control or true or not is a different story. But there's this, I haven't been in that situation, so, you know, it's hard for me to kind of say. But I would imagine if a cop heard a gunshot, he would have reacted, whatever his personal affiliation is. You know what I mean? It's a gunshot. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you know, it would have probably sparked some interest there. But it's funny that both sides blame the police in one way or another. You know, the police did nothing, or the police arrested the wrong group, or the police did, you know, it's always, someone's always the victim on both sides.
Yeah.
And they can at least come together and agree that they don't like police, apparently.
Yeah.
apparently. So, is a you can come together, you guys, the two hate groups, and hate the police.
Yeah.
That'll unite them.
Yeah.
So
So,
what
and
happened?
then,
How did that lady? So she did a little speech about they're just really passionate, blah blah blah. And I
well,
mean,
she didn't give a speech. She was just kind of like, well, yeah, she was like, I saw it. I don't think she said much more as far as in their defense than, yeah, they're really passionate or whatever. So it wasn't like she went into a long thing where she was trying to excuse their behavior or whatever. And she kind of
yeah.
acknowledged that, yeah, they were a little nuts and mental.
Right. Well,
So
what's funny is they want both sides in these rallies. They want numbers, right?
yeah,
These kind of protest things don't matter if there's 3 people, right?
right.
Um, so it's kind of like you have to put up with some shit, because they want people there. I mean,
But
they have to.
I wonder how many other people they ran off with their just bananas attitude and hostility towards people for no apparent reason.
Well, maybe if you stop white splaining.
Yeah. And that girl, the girl that accused me of white splaining, came over and talked to me like on the side after I'd been sitting there for a while, and she was like, well, she kind of apologized and said, it's just hard for me, because I have trouble trusting white males and blah blah blah. she's
What?
she's dating a black guy. She's white herself, and and like she had a really close black friend who said something to her that was really hurtful, and said something like because the white girl is white and the black girl is black, that they can never really truly love each other, and how hurtful that was, and whatever. Like, what does this have to do? Right? Yeah, she's going on about this stuff, and I was like, how does that? And then she said something about how, when I walked up and I wasn't wearing like, an Obama t-shirt or a Bernie t-shirt or Antifa, and I didn't have color in my hair, and I had kind of athletic clothes on or whatever, because it was hot, so I was wearing like
jogging pants kind of thing, or
well, yeah, I had shorts on, but I had an athletic, not microfiber, but it's those breathable kind of loose fitting shirts or whatever, and she says, so you look like those guys that were in Charlottesville, so for all we knew, you were like a racist. It's like, well, if you're judging me based on the way I look, isn't that prejudice too?
Do you ask her that?
Yeah.
What did she say?
She's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. I don't mean to I'm not going to white splain to you, but I'm definitely going to mansplain to you. And listen, sweetie. No, they become everything that they're fighting against. Yeah. And it's ridiculous. They would rather jump to conclusions first and completely judge you, and just they don't know anything about you. They know that their buddy or whatever, the guy that's dressed like them, went over and is like berating you or whatever, and so they're just gonna jump in and start berating you because that dude's berating you. Even if I had I just never been that way. I am really, I have a real aversion to hanging out with a group of like-minded people, like a large groups of like-minded people. Because I really feel awkward, like I feel like I'm a drone, and so I just never. That's why part of the reason why I never gravitated toward religion or anything like that. And this is more of the same. Like, even though I don't necessarily disagree with what they're protesting, I can never be in that group because it's just a lot of like fervor without a lot of maturity and less facts. And so put that energy into something more positive. Go plant a tree or some shit. Or go volunteer somewhere.
Yeah, you wonder, what is going to be the end result of groups like this? Are these kids going to find some moderating influences and kind of find their way to reason,
No,
or are they because there's no telling where that would lead, that kind of mentality and irrationality when you know
here's where it's going to go. This came so assuming Trump doesn't get us all in a nuclear war and we all die, or at least Guam, it was like North Korea or whatever. Assume the Trump thing passes, right? We'll have more of these situations throughout the next year or so, some more violent than others. But assume for a second Trump doesn't win re-election. Right? Assume it's another, a Democrat or whatever, whether it's a Democrat or Republican. But I have a feeling it's going to be a Democrat this time. But anyway, these groups, this Antifa thing, a lot of them will die out. A lot of people are out there looking for a cause and looking for something to believe in, or a like-minded group so they can feel special. And, this whole entitled millennial bullshit will pass, and these guys will be those guys. These are the people that, the people that are a generation above ours that went to Woodstock and protested the Vietnam War.
yeah.
And they'd be like, and you know what happens to those people? They eventually sell out, get real jobs, work in an office, and they, when they get older, they go, yeah, man, I remember, man, I was Antifa and I was open to protest. It'll die out. That's my prediction. It will die out in time, but it's not going to be for a little while. So we're going to put up with this shit and for a little bit longer. That's what I say, because you know what, these white supremacist dudes, like, and not even them, even these Confederate guys, at least their stake in it is based on what they perceive to be historic, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't change with their generation because history is still there. These Antifa guys seem to be jumping on this protest fad, but it's not based. It's basically a reaction to, you know what I mean, like the white supremacist guys, and so I think it's gonna die out.
Yeah, well, and there was one guy, the guy with the mohawk came over to me and apologized and said, what, I'm sorry that some of those guys were a little bit like harsh on you and whatever. You seem like a cool guy, he said. And he tried to explain a little bit of Antifa, and he's like, well, we're anti-fascist, and we just consider ourselves the first line of defense. So,
from what, old guys at a park?
Yeah, I guess if there really were Nazis, or if there was violence, these guys would jump in and start beating people up.
Wait, yeah, somebody saw problems. So they can. Who are they? Fucking the Batman? Like the Justice League. They want to like swoop in, and it's like, they had this imagery. I'm sure they were all charged up because you said like there was some misinformation going about it being like a white supremacist rally. So they're thinking guys are going to be there with like fucking shields and billy clubs and shit like that, and it's a bunch of like fucking dudes and scraggly beards and Confederate flags like standing around.
But they were, the whole time that I was there, they were saying like that, the real shit's gonna go down, after sunset, and
right, with the snipers.
Well, yeah, or and we saw KKK guys, earlier, and this Nazi lady said X, Y, and Z, and
did they actually see Nazi guys, or did they see a white guy? Because they thought you were like,
Yeah, there's no telling what they're calling Nazis or KKK or whatever. Like, how do you identify these people? Did they have some actual symbols that they were carrying? Did they identify themselves that way? What are you basing this on?
Right. Is there like a membership card? Like, like Blockbuster they used to have, like, hey, I'm here's my Nazi membership card.
They're wearing like vests with hello, I'm KKK, how can I help you?
They have like like the Boy Scouts have like that sash with the badges on it. It's like, attended rally badge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. in my first noose. Oh.
Ah, see, I I I was gonna go there, and then I like veered to the left, right, pretty hard
It's
because
probably a good
I
decision.
know. Yeah, I didn't expect you to make that joke, but I expected really me to make that joke.
Yeah.
But no, it's a weird thing, man. It's all reactionary without thought, and that's kind of what happens when you got people that aren't thinking. That those people in the Antifa group think that they're thinking for themselves, and they're not, and they're
Yeah.
not.
And
You can
it's
tell.
obvious because when you ask simple questions, they put up this wall, and it's like, no, I'm not going to expose what I'm here to say or believe or whatever. I'm not going to let myself be vulnerable to somebody asking questions. And
Right. They're the
the
first.
guy was like, I've been doing it all day long, explaining what we're about, and it's emotionally draining. Well,
Well, you don't have to. You can go, no one's making you answer my question. I mean, you can just be like, dude, I've explained it a million times. I'm not doing it anymore.
okay,
But I mean, it
not
seems like
not you, but is there anyone else here who does not find it emotionally draining to explain what you believe?
all right. Well, if he's hanging out in that group all day, how many times could he possibly have to explain it? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make. Yeah, he's fucking dumb. I'd love to talk to these people, but but I have a feeling like once you get them out of that situation, like it's really annoying. See, out here in California, it's way more like it's not violent per se. We don't have that, at least not where I live, but it's just way more hippie-ish in a way, and it's just it's fine. I mean, like I said, I don't necessarily disagree, with what they're protesting, but if you the problem out here is there's a lot of entitlement issues. You know what I mean? And people are very sensitive to like jokes and stuff. And so if you make jokes, people just take it to heart, and they just like, why are you bringing my gender into this, or my, race or whatever? And I'm like, because it's funny. Because see, there's a joke, and the joke normally entails a premise and a setup and then a punchline. It's funny because we had talked about earlier about racism light, what I was joking about earlier. And it's funny because I can make 1,000, Asian or Hispanic jokes, and I've tested this theory on people. I did my own little social experiment until I make the same joke with a different noun in place, and then it's like, whoa, dude, you can't say that because, and it's like, wow, dude, I made I made 3 Asian jokes and you guys were laughing. Like, why is that funny? You know why? Because no one's afraid of Asians. You know what I mean? Like, I can make 1,000 like little people jokes. You know why? No one's afraid of midgets. You know what I mean? Like, but it's a weird dichotomy out here. The problem out here is it's good and it's bad. They preach a lot of like love kind of thing. It's very like, one love, man, one love. We're all the same people, which is a good message until they don't consider you one of those people, and then you're bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, one love, man, one love. I'm an atheist. Get away from me. Here, fuck. I thought we were all one people. Wait, come back. So it's very hypocritical on this, in a lot of ways, but it's a lot more subtle. I think what you experience is a lot more in your face and crazy. I would have loved to have gone with you, by the way.
Well, come on out.
I'm not going to Arkansas. Fuck that. But I mean, I'd go to Libya before I go to the South. Are you crazy? I'm scared. No joke. I'm scared. I will. All right. You seem. Are you surprised or like?
Yeah, I don't think you would need to be scared.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so let me say this. It's possible that if you spent, a good amount of time here, that you might experience some degree of racism. But I would say that it's not very likely in, a short visit. And I think there is less racism towards people with Asian heritage than there is towards people of African
But I'm
heritage.
brown.
You're brown, but you're not.
I'm not brown. I'm not dark enough. Is that
You're not dark. Yeah, you're not dark, and you're more Asian than
well, yeah, I guess.
whatever. And you don't look like Middle Eastern. Um,
Do they really
or
make that distinction though? I mean,
well, it depends on who it is, but and for the most part, I think most people in Arkansas like to think of themselves as racially tolerant. Depending on where you go. So like in central Arkansas and around Little Rock, definitely within Little Rock, there is less racism than there is the further out you go from the cities. I don't know if we've talked about. There's a place called Harrison, Arkansas. I think we may have mentioned this before, but they have like it's 99% white there, and it's 99% white because all of the black people, except for like one family, have left that town if they ever lived there, because they have like billboards and things that say, like what is one of them says something like,
what's the city called?
Harrison, Arkansas. Yeah, you can Google it, Harrison, Arkansas billboard, and you'll see real quickly. One of them says like multicultural is code for anti-white or something like that, and they've apparently got this like alt-right radio show. You see what I'm talking about?
I got a screen share.
Yeah, do it.
It's not racist to love your people. White Pride Radio.
Yep.
Wow, this is a thing.
Yeah.
Anti-racist is a code word for anti-white. Wow, talk about a false dichotomy. North Arkansas College, white diversity diversity equals white genocide. What? What the fuck? Barack Hussein Obama equals more abortion, same-sex marriages, taxes, and gun regulations. I'm good with 3 out of 4 of those.
Yeah. Yeah, and the irony is that this, with sex education and things, that it was likely there would be less abortions. But
welcome to Harrison, beautiful town, beautiful people, no wrong exits, no bad neighborhoods. Is that because they ran out all the minorities? Yeah. Oh, look, it's right under that sign. This is diversity is a code for hashtag white genocide. Oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend going and hanging around in Harrison for very long. Harrison is not the place to visit.
Right. Make it
for anyone. Like I don't like to give my money to that town for that reason. We occasionally will pass through on our way to various places. We used to live in Springfield, Missouri, and Highway 65 runs right through from Little Rock to Springfield, Missouri, and you pass right through Harrison on your way there.
Make sure you have enough gas to keep going and hope that your tires don't blow out or something. That is craziness.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment to the state. I mean, like I say, the vast majority of the people that I would know and associate with and have ever met in Arkansas are not in favor of that kind of stupidity, and they would condemn it. But there are individuals here and there, and in this particular place, there's a town of people that and not even everybody in Harrison. I mean, there are people there who have voiced opposition to those signs, who have said, this sucks, that we don't want this, we should whatever. But the billboard company is making money off And I think it's like one or two guys that have some money that put that stuff up.
That's
But
crazy. I
yeah,
didn't I didn't think things were that open, but I guess they are, huh?
yeah. Well, and that's been before Trump. I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
things have gotten worse. I mean, clearly there's some gained confidence and brashness to the alt right and these kinds of racist groups.
I think with the Trump thing, in many ways, I think it brought out people that were, if you were to scale it to right being full blown, like out and about racist, and left being completely in the closet, it shifted the people that were on the fence like over over the other side a little bit, and and especially when you see other people coming out there, it's like, yeah, fuck, fuck the da and all this stuff, and talking about minorities and shit like that, and then they go, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that, and then I was thinking that for some time, and then you get a bunch of people like Antifa yelling at you, and then that makes you want to side with them even more. You know what I mean? Like, it just instead of the left groups trying to at least bridge the gap, and and maybe they can get more support by mending the bridges, I guess. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
why would you push people away? You're pushing them to the side you're fighting against, which is stupid.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I saw on the news later that night they had a news crew down there. The news crew wasn't there when I was there, but they played some clips from both protests and things. And some of the Antifa people were like screaming at somebody, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And I don't know if it was just those Confederate people, but they completely missed the point and made themselves look like asses by you know screaming at those people, and those people weren't there as representing some kind of racial discrimination. Now I think that they were in there in support of symbolism that's oppressive and whatever, but that wasn't what was being addressed by the Antifa people. And so they're just making themselves look like obnoxious, ignorant asses, and you're going to end up with more people listening to those the Confederates because they're not obnoxious and stupid. You know,
Yeah.
it was very disheartening.
I'm looking up the Harrison City, Arkansas statistics and demographics. The population is 12,152. And the racial breakdown is 97.24% white. There's like 11,816 Caucasians, 14 African Americans, 90 Native Americans, 62 Asians. They break down like 11 Asian Indians, 9 Chinese, 26 Filipinos. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's like nuts, dude.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as a side note, because we're almost done here, I just want to touch on 2 more things real quick. What did you think about the Twitter outing of the white supremacist, the "you are racist" Twitter?
Well, so in principle, I'm not necessarily against that when the person has actually been identified, but there was somebody that was like mistakenly identified, and he was actually a professor from Arkansas, um, and somebody posted doxed him on Twitter or whatever, and he had like threats against his life and his family's life.
Right.
People looked up his information, and people were like stalking his house and things. So he had to like leave his house and take his family because it was that bad. Now, like I say, if you actually know for sure that it was, person X or whatever, and it's not just this guy looks like this other guy,
Right.
you know, I don't necessarily have a problem with you saying, yeah, this guy was at that rally. If he owns a business, don't go to his business because he's a racist Nazi or whatever. Um, especially if it's like a business owner or something like that. I think that's fine. Um, but
I think
don't make don't make threats on people's lives. Don't intimidate them and their families. Even if you have proof positive that it is the person, that's not the way to respond.
well,
Respond
no,
by, yeah, go ahead.
I don't think anyone's advocating like making threats against people or whatever, but just the act itself of outing them was to me hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. I do think of them as sort of like the old Super Friends cartoon, like the Legion of Doom. Like I do think of them as like villains, like real life villains,
Right.
in many ways. Um, the false outing is an issue because there was another guy that got outed, and it's like YouTube personality so and so. And when I looked, I'm like, I seen this guy someplace before, and I looked him up, and I have seen his videos before. He's actually one of those prank guys, and he did he actually pranked dressed as a Nazi and went to like a a street corner, Trump protest or whatever, blah blah blah, to as a kind of a social experiment. Now, whether he was there at Charlottesville for that or whatever, but he had made several comments saying like I'm at sort of this kind of thing, and so he has like a secret record. He's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, we're all for Trump, right? Like I don't, we're like, yeah, dude, I'm I'm a Nazi, this and that, and they, the Trump people were like, dude, we don't want anything to do with you, this and that, like, they were just guys in the street corner, what I mean, I don't want to be associated with like a guy with a swastika armband, but I don't know if he was there as part of that, like him, dressing up, or he doesn't, or he was actually there for a protest. But that being said, if you're pictured, I mean, are you saying the professor he wasn't there? It's like someone just
That's right.
looked like
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they
Yeah,
just
that's
look
a whole
like,
different animal.
yeah, they based it on the two photos that they found or whatever, and they were like, oh, this looks similar. This is the guy, and it
Yeah.
wasn't the professor.
He was like, I was in Cancun. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny, in a way. I to me, making someone lose their job is, I don't take that shit lightly, right? Because that's like someone's livelihood.
Yeah.
Even people that I don't like in real life, or people that have, I had a guy like threaten to kill my dog at work once, and even then, even though
It was a coworker.
Yeah, even yeah.
Yikes.
I had my dog at work that day, and because they were checking for black mold, and so I brought her in a crate, and I had permission, and it was a 2-story building, and we were on the second floor, and the bottom one wasn't used except for the conference room, and so it was empty. So I let her run around in there, and I was heating up my food in the kitchen, which was also downstairs. And he came down, and he already didn't like me because I had made a joke, and it wasn't directed at him or his wife. His wife also worked. His wife was a big racist, though. And I didn't know that she was having trouble having kids, and I made a joke about having kids, and
Oh my.
they had hated me forever, and I didn't know. He started yelling at me about my dog, and I was like, I got permission, man. You go talk to the manager, and he's like, you want me to go in there and kill your fucking dog right now? I'll kill your dog fucking right now. I'll go there and kick him. I'm like, if it's gonna make you feel like more of a man to kill a 6-pound Yorkshire Terrier, go right ahead, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I'm not gonna argue with you about this, But anyway, I don't know how I got. Where was I going? How did I get involved with that guy? What was I talking about?
I don't know.
You don't listen to me at all anymore.
I was reading articles.
But his wife was a legit racist. Like she said, at work, when she was trying to buy a house with her husband, because when they got married, she said, we looked at this house today, and you can tell by the way it smelled that Mexicans used to live there. And I was like, what the, whoa, like what's, you know what I mean? Like she treated,
Nice.
yeah,
Oh,
her kid was sick once, and she thought we were cool. I don't know why she thought we were cool, but we had to work together with something, and it was shitty. But she thought we were cool for a second, and she looked stressed, and she was like, I took my kid to the hospital, and we went there, and my kid was way sicker than all those brown babies that were there. And I was like, whoa. I was like, why are the brown baby? You know what I mean? Like, she said it with like disdain, like how dare the doctor see those brown babies before my kid? My kid's obviously more sick. That's what she said. And I was like, I don't know how to respond to that. You know what I mean? I was like, I would categorize that as a racist comment, but yeah, she would always say stuff like that, and it was just yeah. I try to avoid her like the plague, to be honest, but
there was an episode of the Colbert Report back in the day where Stephen Colbert was responding to the owner of the Redskins putting together some kind of like racial sensitivity, but it was like the Redskins racial sensitivity for Native Americans or something like that charity. So, and he was making fun of it for, being, having Redskins in the title of the charity, right.
The charity, the name of the charity itself was racially insensitive in the name.
Yeah.
So he did it. So he he satired it by saying that,
yeah.
So Ding Dong Foundation for Sensitivity to Orientals, which is hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
see, folks, I understand fucking satire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but Stephen got all kinds of blowback on Twitter and whatever for it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the reason why I get so angry with people. Specifically, I bitch about millennials a lot, like the new millennials, right? They do not understand satire. They don't understand parody. Satire is over their head for the most part. It's like they get mad at like Onion articles. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing, where it's like, guys, this is it's a joke, right? Yeah. Like, did I ever tell you one of my favorite articles? There's two articles that I love. One of them is it's by this white dude, this old white guy who looks kind of like Anthony Bourdain from,
Yeah.
So anyway, it says it's like stereotypes save so much time or something like that. And he goes to this, it's like an op-ed piece, quote unquote, and he's like, yeah, just as a white male, it just saves me so much time to just group everyone together. And he's like, when I pick a doctor, I skip straight to the Jewish sounding names because it's so much easier, or the Asian sounding names. So it's like, and it's so funny. Like, it's obviously it's the Onion, so it's obviously satire. Yeah. And I told that joke to some 23-year-olds. I pointed them to the article, and they just didn't get it. They're just like, yeah, but I'm white and I don't do that. No, dude. See what he's doing. It's a joke, right? Like it's satirizing how it's like. They don't get it. And if I show that article to a Trumpy, right, and the response is always, yeah, but are there any articles like that are like for minorities that's like that? You know what I mean? Like I have this thing. I made this joke. I called this dude Wonder Bread at work. He's like this young guy, like this big white kid, works out, he's what Hitler would have wanted, you know what I mean? Like, nice guy, real cool dude. We always joke around, that kind
Aryan
of
poster boy.
Yeah. And so I made the joke. I said I always joke, I go, I wish I was you. I walk by, I wish I was you, man. I would just like fucking just have all these little mottos and shit that I sing to people anyway. And he goes, why do you wish you were me? And I just go, I would want to be you just to get out of the speeding tickets. You know what I mean? It'd be so worth it just to get out of that. And like, he looks at me and he goes, well, but I've got tickets too. I'm like, dude, see, the joke is because you look a certain, you know what I mean? Do you understand the joke? You understand the joke? I'm not being serious. You know what I mean? Like, I just, and then the girl who's the Trumpy goes, well, but you call them Wonder Bread. I mean, is there an equivalent for minorities too? And I'm like, dude, you're turning this into something that it's not. Do you understand that our the histories of how the differences in ethnicities are very different in this country, for better or for worse, right? It's important to understand those. Now, I was making a joke. I was making a white privilege joke, right? But I'm not saying that all white people have privilege. You understand the difference, right, Gabby? Please tell me you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because there are a lot of people that don't, and I don't understand. Like, when I called him Wonder Bread, she got mad. She said, what does that mean? And I'm like, because he's like a like a wholesome kind of guy, right? It means he's wholesome and white, essentially. But that's essentially what it meant. And so she's like, that's when she was like, oh, is there something for minorities? So I have this sort of like working theory when it comes to that. I don't know if I told you, but if you were to let me know what you think first. I'm not necessarily you, okay? But so if there's a scale, right, and this is like the median for like equality, like treating people, underneath is not being treated with the same privilege, as I knock my microphone about, and up here is quote unquote white privilege, right? Okay, that's the perception if you're a minority, kind of, right? So, in the interest of equality, they're trying to bring this up, right, and this down, essentially, sure. So we're all the same. So, when you have things like grants for minorities or this and that, right, that's trying to bring this up to bring up the education level overall. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Sure.
White people where I'm from go, well, that's not fair because blah 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 blah. They don't understand. They have this already, right? You know what I mean? Like, you guys got this. So when they bring this up, if they're bringing this down, this loss that they feel they have is they feel it's unequal. But you don't get to hear immediately, right? It's a sliding scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so for example, if white people are pulled over, for fewer times per, their representation in the population than people of color, that's an issue. And of the times that they are pulled over, the incidents when they are pulled over by law enforcement, there's fewer repercussions and less severe repercussions for them, as white people. That's privilege that shouldn't be the case. They should be pulled over, with equal amount if they're violating the laws, and they should have the same kinds of penalties for breaking the same kinds of laws as other people. The justice should be blind. It shouldn't be, one group gets, treated differently than other groups.
I mean, I would just like to say, but that most of the racism I've experienced in my life has come from Asians, not white people. Again, I just want to make sure I said that, because race has been sort of a central theme, and I made some jokes, and I don't want anyone to think like I have something against white people, because I don't. I mean, most of my friends are white, actually, so I can say that, right? Like, I have one, I have one black friend, like, I can make black jokes. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, but my point is, of course, no, but I'm saying, like, growing up, especially, I would say good 3/4 to 80% of the experience, racism I've experienced has come from Asians. Asians are like Chihuahuas in the sense that they're very tight knit. They hang out with each other. You know what I mean? Like, and they hang out with their whatever particular Asian. They're, Japanese tend to hang out with Japanese people. Not so much anymore. I think that's kind of going by the wayside, with this whole millennial thing, but. Which is good, but they're trying to explain that perception, like you just said, it doesn't really register with people. And people have a hard time putting themselves in someone else's shoes. You know what I mean? Now, I've seen many videos about, police quote unquote brutality, or, like, especially in an urban area that's primarily African American, right? It's a bunch of people with cell phones, and let it go, this and that. Like you see people kicking police officers, and they're trying to drag people out of the car, and like, you got dudes or people that are trying to interfere with the police, and they get arrested, and it's police brutality, and they don't. They're quick to jump on that, but they don't understand how dangerous being a police officer is. Like I've had a couple of bad experiences with police officers. Not a lot, because I'm not an asshole and I don't get myself into trouble. But by and large, I will generally stick up for the police officer, because I've known enough of them to know that they go through a lot of shit. You know what I mean? Right. There was I think we spoke about this last week, but that there was a video of this African American family that called the cops on some guy that was fixing like some electrical thing on the side of the sidewalk. And he got there, and they were like yelling at the cop, and the camera's from his chest cam or whatever, and everyone's like blah 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 blah, and he's trying to, and now you pull up as a police officer, you have certain protocol you got to go through. You have to assess the situation, right? You got to make sure everyone's separated. You got to get the story. I mean, you're probably calling for another officer or two or whatever, blah blah blah, and he was going to talk to the mom or something, and they were being very like abrasive and stuff, and so he was going to take the mom and detain her, and the daughter like stepped in between them and grabbed his hand and hers, and was like no, and just like kind of shoved their arms away. And so he grabbed her and put her, and was going to arrest her now, because now she's interfering with an investigation, right? And now she's kicking and screaming and yelling and this and that. And now it's like, we call the cops and you're arresting us. And it's, and they have no idea how frustrating it is. I mean, just working in security myself, I've been accused of being racist many times over. You know what I mean? And it's not an easy thing. And being an officer is not an easy thing, Yeah. So it's not a matter of that per se. But I think it's more of a matter of maybe the industry that I'm in, but it's very hard for people to sort of see if they have some sort of privilege one way or another, that privilege. It's hard for them to acknowledge it, I guess, as a thing. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but anyway, well, we're at the 2-hour mark. What do you think, Gabby?
I think that's a wrap.
And by that means we're going to bust some rhymes right now. You're going to freestyle. They both stop. Oh, yeah.
Go. I'm
so anyway.
hippopotamus. My lyrics are bottomless.
You should have done that at the Antifa rally.
No, that's from the Flight of the Conchords. You don't know Flight of the Conchords, though. You don't know anything, man.
I don't know what are you talking about.
Flight of the Conchords. I'll hook you up after the show.
All right. Yeah, we didn't get to the Vice thing. We didn't get to tearing down the monuments in general. We didn't get to Trump's reactions and his influence on the white supremacy movement. But we're out of time, so fuck it. That's how dedicated we are. That, and I'm gonna go eat lunch. So have a good weekend. And stay salty.